Hi, I'm Frank and welcome to my woodturning channel. This week I'm going to try to finish turn this piece of apple wood. It has a bunch of different branches coming into it. You can see there's one here and then there's one here as well. So it's kind of crotch wood, but it's a little bit longer than normal. In my last video I showed cutting this up in half. So you can see here I've just laid it down and cut the piece in half. And there's what it looks like. A lot of nice, interesting looking grain. Some figure going through here. And what I'm going to do is turn it two different ways. In one of the pieces I'm going to turn it up like this to have this kind of live edge. And in the other piece I'm going to turn it the other way, where this is the bottom, and I'm going to have almost a kind of a heart-shaped type bowl, they call it, with the live edge being up here. So since the pieces are dry, I can just do them right from start to finish. The other pieces I turned in my last video were wet, and they're sitting in the kiln waiting to dry before I can finish those. So this will give you an idea of what those will look like when they're done as well. This is just a quick recap of the chainsawing process to cut this piece apart into two pieces. Now that I've had a closer look at these pieces, I don't think I can do the heart-shaped type bowl this way. It's just a bit too shallow and too narrow. I'm going to miss out capturing these pieces. So I think I'm only going to turn this piece with this being the bottom, this being the top, so I can capture a lot of the live edge around here. So I've found the center point. And I'm going to use my new handy dandy large spur that threads right onto the chuck. And I'll start it between centers this way and get it trued up, put a tenon on the bottom, and then take it from there. Here I'm just making sure that the front face runs fairly true. So I just reposition it every once in a while to just get it running as close as I can to flat on this top surface here. I'm just using my 5/8 inch bowl gouge to get this piece roughed out. So I'll start on the bottom surface here and just take small cuts because it is an interrupted cut, and just keep progressing this way. Before I go too much further on the bottom of the piece, I want to flatten out this top section here so I know what I have to work with in terms of how thin to make the piece. Now this is looking good. I think it's pretty well flat across this entire top surface now. I'm just sizing up the tenon here. Now that I've shaped it this far, I don't really like the look of the bottom. It's not balanced enough for me to get a reasonable shape on the bottom of the piece. So unfortunately, I made the tenon already, but I'm going to have to move the piece, which means it's going to be a smaller tenon. But I think that will still work and allow me to safely turn the piece. So here I am, I'm just going to move the piece so I get a little bit better balance of the bottom bowl area of the piece. And you're going to see here now that we end up having quite a bit smaller tenon. Here's a view from another angle so you can see what the piece looks like. I was really hoping to keep the bark on this piece, but the more I cut, the more it just sort of fell off. So probably the best thing to do is just to take the bark completely off of this. Because the live edge now looks very, very close to the same color as the rest of the wood, I'm actually going to darken the outer live edge all the way around the piece, just with a torch, just to darken it up a little bit and give it a little bit of more of a distinct look relative to the rest of the piece. I'm just going to continue using a series of cuts, and then when I have some areas totally finished, I'll use a negative rake scraper and just take away any little lines here and there. Here I am now, just using the negative rake scraper. The video is quite sped up here, but I am trying to do nice slow finish cuts to get a really good surface finish. This is actually the turning speed and the speed of my tool movement that I'm using when I do my final finish cuts. Nice and slow to get a good finish. With the bottom all done, I'm going to take the piece off and put it in the chuck and then work on the top surface of the piece now. And I'm going to use the same process here again. Do some cuts and then clean up that area with a negative rake scraper just to take away any little lines that might remain there. This portion here now is just basically hollowing out a bowl. Now that the wings are totally finished, the bowl area is quite a bit simpler with continuous cut all the way around. Across this bottom area here, I'm just going to use a bottoming bowl gouge. It does a lot better job on this flatter grain. Now on one of the pieces, I'm just going to try to dye it. I'm just applying a blue dye on this surface and just see how it works out. So I apply the dye and then I sand it and then I apply maybe a different color of dye or a different shade of the same color. So I did that 2 or 3 times to get the finished product that you'll see at the end of the video. And I'm not sure whether I like it dyed or just plain. So it's one of those things that sometimes, you know, the dyed piece might not look that much better than the regular piece. So we'll see once the finish is on it. Here I'm just showing that I use a jam chuck to take off the bottom tenon area. And I'm just going to use my Fordham type tool here with a rotary carver, and I have a Kutzall type carbide burr on here just to remove the little nub here on the bottom of the bowl. I'm going to use General Salad Bowl finish, which is kind of my preferred finish for this type of thing. So I usually use the brush on areas that are kind of hard to wipe on. Use the brush first, and then I'll wipe it on and wipe it off. Same process I use for all of my bowls and burls. Well, this is just after one coat, and actually I don't mind the look of the colored piece now. It looks a little more interesting now that I've put some finish on it. Stay tuned for some pictures.